Hi, all. Uh, Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our Gen AMI session on the topic of zero trust in cybersecurity. I will try to capture this conversation in the next 20 to 30 minutes, during which we will go over some of the questions that you guys have shared with us ahead of time. And we will also take live audience questions through this conversation. I'm your host for today. My name is Abhi Garg. I serve as the Chief Revenue Officer at BuzzClan, and I'm joined by Sachin Jain, who is the CTO and co-founder of BuzzClan. Before we dig in, since this is our renewed AMA session, a little bit of information about our guest and your host today. As your host, I'm driving this conversation and I'm going to quiz Sachin on various subjects that touch zero trust and cybersecurity. I have over 22 years of experience in transformative digital growth through cloud, AI, and GTM innovations, go-to-market innovations. And I bring in a unique revenue perspective to these conversations because I'm a technologist who speaks marketing. And I've been instrumental in architecting enterprise strategies for complex transformations. Our expert today on this conversation is Sachin, who brings in 30 years of journey spanning enterprise architecture at Verizon to co-founding BuzzClan, and he is a four-time Inc. 5000 honoree. He carries deep expertise in Oracle engineered systems, including private cloud infrastructure and cybersecurity. He holds advanced degrees, including an MBA from University of Dallas. Previously, he has architected security solutions for Fortune 500 clients across healthcare, telecom, and finance sectors. His hands-on experience with both legacy enterprise security as well as cutting-edge AI transformation make him uniquely positioned to tackle some of the questions we're going to take in today. So, with that, Sachin, welcome to the conversation and thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Hey, greetings everybody, and thanks for the introduction. I couldn't have it brings back memory of a long period of experience that you've summarized pretty well. Thanks for that. Just to add to that, definitely, IT has always been an ever-changing landscape. I think that's one of the things that keeps us motivated in this field. I mean, I always dread what if I was in some other profession where things were not this dynamic? Would I have the same zeal for the job that I would have been doing? Luckily, this is one field. The only other field that I can think of is medical, where you have to be constantly on your toes in terms of learning, in terms of keeping updated as the technology moves. You have to kind of pivot and learn with it. And I'm really grateful for the choice of profession that I have in terms of being able to kind of keep myself motivated to come to work every day. Um, yeah.
Fantastic. You couldn't have said it better because this is one of those things, and especially the angle we're going to touch today is the Gen AI facet of it, how the evolving landscape, as you presented, touches the cybersecurity realm and how it makes the jobs exciting and challenging at the same time. But we'll get to that in a second. But tell us a little bit more. Advanced education, 30 years of industry experience, all these years, you've been prepping, and finally you have an opportunity to come on my show today. So how do you feel?
It's been a journey, and moments like this, or events, or opportunities like this, kind of makes you reconsider because I wouldn't kind of hide the fact from you that I've been catching up with a lot of things for since we kind of started this thing, and because as I said, right, things are ever evolving. And even though I myself did a kind of series on zero trust about a year ago, but then kind of meshing it with the Gen AI was completely something that absolutely needed to be done because a lot of the zero trust implementations are moving to merge or marry with the Gen AI or the ML AI ML paradigm. So this was a refresher for me in terms of preparing for this. So that was pretty helpful, and again, part of what we do on a daily basis to keep ourselves up to date. Some people say cutting edge. Sometimes I say bleeding edge. Depends on what's going on. So it was definitely good. So over the years, frankly, I'll tell you, I love logic. So for me, I look at technology from a logic perspective. As mathematics gets to seep in, I kind of get a little afraid or a little kind of put off because I'm not very good at maths or arithmetic or whatever you want to call it. And so when back in the days when ML, machine learning, or AI started, it was very mathematics oriented, right? And so that was an area that I kind of stayed away from because that's not my forte. I'm more of a logic and a logic guy. That's how I see IT as, for the most part. And then came Gen AI, and it was like, yeah, back in the game, right? So, and but as I start looking at Gen AI implementations, as I started to implement Gen AI for our internal projects, for our client projects, and then the security paradigm, I go back to the ML and AI thing, right? I mean, I don't want to take those as two separate things as the easy way out per se. So as we kind of discuss various paradigms of various implementations of zero trust and AI, I would keep coming back to the ML part because I think that's very key. But then the Gen AI part of the whole AI and ML AI field helped me to be more proactive. My fear of the maths kind of went away, and I looked at it again.
Got it. Thank you for sharing some of the perspectives that you've acquired over the years, Sachin. Before I start blasting away with my questions, a couple of ground rules for the folks here on the call today. A, please stay muted. There's a reason you can't unmute yourselves because we don't want any external noise or anything else distracting us from the true conversation here. Second, if you have additional questions for Sachin, please post them in the group chat window. They will be shared with the hosts and the co-hosts of this call today, so they know how to moderate those questions and bring them to our attention. And finally, we already have a bunch of questions that the audience is submitted to us through the week when we open this to the floor on Monday of this week. So we have a lot of content to cover, and the questions will be very direct, very insightful. So, Sachin, I hope you're ready for it because you will not be able to walk your way through them. They are very specific questions. So, here I go.
I'll try my
Uh,
best.
awesome. All the best. All right. So, the first one is and that's something actually this question was repeated multiple times through the audiences. So one of the fundamental things that's been bothering a few people is that zero trust is based on the paradigm of never trust and always verify. Now, having said that, the Gen AI models themselves require us to trust them implicitly with all the training data that we supply to them, and then trust their decision making process and even the output that they spit back to us. So, how do we maintain in this setup never trust, always verify principles when GI themselves require significant trust in the training data as well as the decision making process?
That's pretty interesting. One of the things that initially came out was that most of the processes behind the foundational models were a black box to everybody because the founders didn't want kind of that coming out. But as multiple foundation models started to come out, right? So we have foundation models from the uh, cloud or Meta or Oracle or different providers. I mean, what we can now say is that we know generally what is going on behind the scenes. And there are a lot of regulatory, there are a lot of ethics concerns. And so it's opening up. And so we know what's going on behind the scenes, how those models are being trained. And then the thing is, because we have multiple models, so we can test our responses from multiple models and kind of validate and pick the model that makes more sense for our use cases based on our testing. So we cannot just pick one and then kind of stick to one. We'll have to continuously test it out against various models to ensure that there is no bias. Or does that kind of make sense? It's not one and done. You'll continuously have to shift or test various models and be ready to take on any model underneath your implementations.
So I have a personal segue on this, which is there's LLMs out there or Gen AI family out there in general. You could adopt any one of those. And then there's a whole concept of RAG, which is compartmentalizing the learning bits with the data that you supply to that. Can that framework be applied for zero trust security as well?
Yes. So the RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, basically, in a nutshell, it basically says that we have the big foundation model that has been provided by a vendor, and then we augment that model with our institutional data, and then it kind of becomes a private extension of the LLM. So that will help, of course, because now we are basically saying that okay, response to our queries or response to our implementations with respect to the private data that we have provided. But underneath it, the majority of the learning is still based out of the foundation model, right? So the biases can come, or issues can come from the generation of the foundation model, even though we are trying to fence it around the data that we have provided. So yes, it does help, but we cannot totally rely on one underlying foundation model, even though we have built the RAG kind of framework above it. So I would still want us to continuously monitor and test against multiple foundation models. And the good thing is that pretty much every foundation model now has the RAG capabilities, so we can build a framework where we are easily able to swap the underlying models for testing and implementations.
Got it. Thank you for that. So the next question from the audience is on the evolutionary nature of these threats, and I'm trying to paraphrase their question. So let's talk about how the threat landscape itself is changing. And we've spent years perfecting behavioral analytics to catch those insider threats, unusual login patterns, data access anomalies, that sort of a thing. But AI is rewriting how we do all of that based on what even suspicious behavior looks like. So my question is, with Gen AI capabilities of sophisticated social engineering attacks and deepfakes, mind you, how should a zero trust framework evolve to detect AI generated insider threats that traditional behavioral analytics might miss?
That's an age-old question, right? I mean, there's always the good and the evil, right? The cop and the robber paradigm. So the good guys will always have to work towards being one step ahead of the bad guys, right? And on the flip side, the bad guys only have to be correct once, whereas the good guys have to correct pretty much all of the time. Otherwise, they are compromised. So that is the challenge that the good guys always face. So one is learning, right? So we'll have to ensure that we have a continuous group of ethical people who are are updating their skills and their implementations thereof. On top of that, from an AI perspective and zero trust perspective, right? So we cannot just rely on the AI or the technology aspect of it. Will have to bring in human factor into it, and ensure that whatever decisions are being made in an automated fashion are being double checked by a human in the loop, right? So cognitive load testing, dynamic security questions. So one of the, I mean, I hate those, but I kind of know that they are the best way to secure a system is the security questions that is part of the multi-factor authorization. So that's one of the things that you bring in, and then biometric beyond the obvious, right? So we have fingerprinting or facial recognition, but beyond that, there are like keystroke dynamics, mouse movement patterns. AI can mimic those, but still there are inconsistencies that human motor control that brings in that cannot be totally replicated by AI. So there are different ways where we have to one keep up with on the good guys part, and then also bring in the human in the loop to ensure that that is done correctly.
This reminds me, of a joke or a meme that goes around. Hey, prove you're a human. I just did. I went through all the bikes in all the photographs.
Mhm.
So I think what I heard is that that paradigm won't go away anytime soon. Till the time AI can be trusted to be fully autonomous in ways we cannot just imagine yet.
Yes, that's I think a little further out in the future. How far, I don't know, because things are progressing very rapidly in this field. But again, it's not today. It's not out there today.
Got it. The next question, I'm trying to paraphrase the question presented, is the application of theory into practice. So all of this sounds great, but when we try to do this at scale, the AI-powered verification has a performance penalty or reality check that we cannot ignore. So the question becomes, since zero trust requires continuous verification, but Gen AI inference can introduce latency, how do organizations balance the security benefits of AI-powered verification against the performance demands of modern applications?
Pretty critical implementation reality there, right? So AI models are huge, both in terms of their size, the computational requirements that they have. But then, if you look at the recent model that came out of China, right? They have proved that it can be done on a much smaller scale while being effective. So one of the things that we have to do, there are various things that we have to do, actually not one, right? So one is what we would call is the edge implementation. So instead of having it on a server, a remote server, we bring in a trimmed down, toned down model right where my security implementation is being done so that it can be done pretty much real time, right? Caching. So we have made a decision once. We try to cache that decision and then reuse that decision in a more kind of non-AI way or without having to go back to the AI. Context aware performance tuning. So, depending upon what kind of application or platform that we are trying to tune, right? I mean, if it's a financial trading platform, uh, of course, that's high cost, high risk. So we have higher budgets, so we can kind of put in more money and make it more relevant. If it's just a e-commerce or an enterprise SaaS, then we may have to tone down and bring in a little more caching implementations there, right? Uh, Asynchronous verification is another way that we can do, where we kind of look at transactions that at a later time are flagged. Then we should be able to go back and reverse those transactions if that's feasible. More so, these are the different ways that we should be able to do that. Again, you get what you pay for, right? So depending upon the nature of the application, you have to balance. Those decisions.
Got it. Thank you. The next one is slightly tricky. So we recommend organizations to implement zero trust security and to minimize the data exposure and religiously implement least privilege access. But then we're also saying feed your AI models with as much data as possible to make them effective, right? So there's a conundrum there. So the question becomes, if the Gen AI models require extensive data to be effective, but then zero trust principles advocate for minimal data exposure, how does one train AI security models while maintaining data compartmentalization and least privilege access at the same time?
That's one of the core tensions that's keeping the security architects up at night, right? The foundational model that a vendor is providing has worldly knowledge on it, right? I mean, that's supposed to be knowledge that's available publicly. I mean, and does not have any or should not have any security implications, right? I mean, that's publicly available data. Now, how do you augment that with your organizational data, your institutional data, and still keep it private and not make it part of? So, one is you have to ensure that the vendor is not kind of taking any data that you are providing it for decision making back into the learning mode, right? And then again, you mentioned RAG. That's the framework that suits this, that brings a solution to this, right? So you create multiple RAG implementations inside your organization. So I could have a HR RAG, I could have a finance RAG, I could have a security RAG, implementations, and then my zero trust APIs into all these rags and kind of brings in information from there to make the decision while keeping all those data points private, right? So department level model training is what I would call pattern federation without data federation. So let's say you have financial data and Abhi's information is there. I mean, I don't put my data as Abhi's data. I just kind of put it as a more encrypted while still maintaining the meaning of that data, right? So those are some of the things that we need to do. We have to ensure that the underlying foundational model does not learn from my institutional data. So those two will have to be separated out, and RAG is the architectural model to ensure that.
Okay. So this particular question I'm about to ask next just came in, although it should go to the bottom of the queue. But I think based on your answers to the past couple of questions, this is a very relevant one right now. So it says here that when Gen AI flags anomalies in a zero trust setup, how do we design the human verification layer? And you talked about human verification a few minutes ago. So the question is more around you have AI flagging anomalies, and then you have your security teams, they're getting those alerts. And somewhere in between, someone has to make a call that could shut down the business, especially the e-commerce example that you shared about. So how does this take place? How do you uh, place a confidence in the AI system with integrated with human intuition, and who makes that final call?
Question is not AI or human, right? It's how we design the human AI collaboration that leverages the strength of both. So AI is more of a pattern recognition, language recognition tool, and it can draw from a vast level of knowledge bases, databases that it's been trained on, right? Humans are more contextual. We excel at more contextual reasoning, business impact assessment, and adapting to novel situations. I mean, we have our own knowledge bases in our mind, and then when paired with the what's going on right now in a particular situation, we can make those decisions more rapidly than any AI would ever be able to do. So we need to merge those two things, right? AI brings in patterns that we may not be able to recognize and make it obvious to us, and then we take that information, a human takes that information and makes the decision based on what other things are going on right now. So we have to do that. So when AI flags an anomaly, the question becomes: given this AI assessment and this business context, and the potential impacts, I mean, what's the right decision for our organization? And that's where the human kind of comes in. So that's where we need to be. That fundamental human question that benefits with or from an AI powered data and pattern recognition. So we need to merge those two and make available those dashboards and decision making opportunities for a human to kind of take benefit from that.
All right, thank you. The next one talks about organizations that have had infrastructure in place around cybersecurity, because very few organizations would present themselves as examples who are starting on the cybersecurity journey today, right? So this question is centered around that. So it asks, what's your approach when a client wants to layer Gen AI capabilities onto their existing zero trust infrastructure? What are some of the integration challenges they need to be aware of? And how do you navigate all of this without breaking what's already working?
Abhi, I mean, that's something that we face day in and day out, right? You walk into a client situation where they are still using mainframes, they are still using legacy systems, and you tell them, hey, we are going to convert this into a zero trust implementation, and everybody's looking at your face and saying, what? But how are you going to do that? So we don't need we cannot rip and replace, right? That's never a solution for organizations that have variety of implementations going on in their place. So how do we do that? We kind of start at the edge, right? We don't really go in and attack the core or core applications, but we start at the edges, right? So we take what's available. So we take how they are getting their security done. I mean, we have to attack from outside in. We take a look at how they are implementing logs, right? We take that log file that they are generating right now and try to see if we can then transform into a better log implementation and then run our zero trust implementations on that, ensure that our Gen AI capabilities are able to recognize those patterns better because of that. And once we have proved that, and that has been, then we can go and say, okay, can you have some changes made to your original program to spit out those logs in this format instead of what they are doing right now, because you have proven it to them, you have shown the value of that, we have shown that, okay, if I'm doing it after the fact, then it's adding latency to it, but if we can do the changes internally, then hopefully it'll help us remove that latency, right? So parallel processing, right? That's another way that you can do that. You can take a process that they're doing, run it parallelly into your new paradigm, and then kind of get a buy-in from everybody, the business, the IT, the security, and make sure that they see the value in it for ensuring the changes to their um, core applications. So, and you have to ensure that you see the performance impact of your changes that'll be on the legacy systems that'll have to be mitigated. Um, so these are some of the things that I would approach a situation like that, instead of going in and saying that, hey, we just need to redo the whole thing. We kind of look at it, take smaller bites, and then make add value to it so that they see a use case for the changes that we are expecting them to implement.
Got it. I actually had a follow up while you were speaking, but I think the parallel processing bit answered that part for me. So it's not just pure substitution, it's augmentation. And then within augmentation, you can also do parallel processing to speed things up. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Lisa, I have time for maybe we can take another couple of questions. So I know we have a bunch of questions here, but I'll just pick any two. Let's talk about ROI, and that's most CISOs and most finance people are very cognizant of this today in this tight economic climate. So let's talk about the budget. So how do you quantify the ROI of Gen AI enhanced zero trust, especially even to begin with? Let's take a step back. Which metrics matter, and how can a business build a case that goes beyond we need this for security, because that's a blanket umbrella statement. So how do you build a use case for internal traction within an ecosystem?
AI security initiative die not from technological failures or technological issues, but more from a financial justification failure, right? So the before we have to justify or before we have to bring in our security stakeholders to buy in, I think before that we have to make sure that the business or the CFO is kind of is able we are able to justify to the CFO that this will reduce cost and enable revenue. How do we do that? By ensuring that we are presenting a value creation messaging, instead of just we might be able to prevent a breach messaging, right? So by how do we do that is showing them value that if we bring in AI based zero trust implementation, we remove manual security reviews, we have a faster incident response capability, we improve our productivity of our security team, right? uh, these are efficiency things that we can promote to a CFO. Uh, from a compliance perspective, right? CFOs are also responsible for the compliance. So we ensure compliance automation is one of our goals or one of our outputs of the implementation, right? Acceleration of digital transformation. If they have a legacy system, we bring in our thought process into converting, modernizing that legacy platform by bringing ours, right? So cost saving, security tool, right? So if we augment our AI with their existing tools, I mean, we are able to improve the costing of those, reducing the compliance cost by bringing in AI factor into it. Insurance. I mean, can we go and talk to the insurance provider and say, hey, look, by doing this X, Y, and Z, we lower our risk, the portfolio. So can we get lower insurance premiums? So these are some of the things that we have to take to the business, specifically to the CFO, and get their buy-in to ensure that we are going in strong financially into an implementation, while also maintaining a strong technical kind of expertise on that.
Got it. Thank you. So you gave a very specific example of the insurance sector where the benefits could be passed on to the end consumers or even improve the bottom line. Any other sectors that could be direct beneficiaries of such a paradigm?
I didn't mean the sector. I meant the organization's insurance premium. So let's say, as an
Ah,
organization, they have an insurance against security breaches or anything, and we can showcase that by implementing these paradigms, our risk portfolio decreases. So can we now take that to our insurance provider and tell them to reduce our premiums because our risk has reduced? Um, so that's one thing. But otherwise, most of these should apply to multiple sectors, because everybody has those regulatory or specifically sectors which have regulatory requirements against security, like banking, healthcare, or public sector. That's where we can implement these, definitely.
awesome. Thank you. Final question. We just have time to squeeze in one last one. And I think I'll talk about the skill gaps here. Especially, there's a lot of talk about how people need to reskill themselves or upskill themselves, how organizations need to pivot towards this new AI first world. So, in such a situation, how do you believe organizations are addressing the talent challenge, even at BuzzClan, for instance? And do the companies need to build these capabilities internally, or are they relying increasingly on partners and consultants to be able to do this for them?
So people in the mix, right? That's I think an always continuous challenge. How to ensure that we have the right skill set among our teams or among our partner ecosystem. Challenges, right? So zero trust architecture, right? It's a broad subject. It's a very new subject. I mean, I cannot expect to have a zero trust architect with 20 years of experience on zero trust because it's just so new. And combine that with AI and ML security specialist and integration specialist. I mean, one thing is you cannot have these into one role, right? You cannot just say that I need that purple squirrel. That doesn't work. So you have to identify separate roles and ensure that you have separate people, separate resources who are experts in those individually, not as a combined. Build hybrid teams, right? But don't expect having hybrid people. that's where it starts to break down. So understand that you have to have the right team composition. Instead of seeking AI security unicorns, we'll build complementary teams, right? Security architects, data scientists, integration engineers, business analysts. But then once you have these individuals, ensure that they cross train each other so that your security professional is learning AI, your AI professional is learning security, your infra professional is learning both, so that they can work together as a team. I mean, they don't have to be an expert in all of those things, but they should have the understanding of what the others are doing. Internal versus external partnership, a hybrid strategy always works, right? That's why we have partners who specialize in certain things, we specialize in certain things, and together we can take the burden further more efficiently. It also kind of reduces the risk because we are now kind of spread out, and the risk is spread out in just not the internal team, but there are other teams that we can lean on. So that's where we need to do strategic partnerships and vendor managed services, right? So whichever vendor project or vendor products that we are using, we also need to be able to lean into their support infrastructure, support teams to fill any gaps that we may have and kind of continue to build. So whenever a vendor is providing you an infrastructure or a software, they're also providing you support in terms of training, in terms of kind of technical support. So we should be, and specific consulting also. So we should be able to lean into those to ensure a efficient fit. So that will be my take on it. Kind of bring in various people, train them specifically, and then cross train them so that everybody understands what the end goal is.
Fantastic. I think I really like what you said, and I think I'll ask you to repeat that one line: build hybrid teams, but don't expect hybrid people. What was that again, please?
It's like we see day in and day out, we see job descriptions where you're looking for a data engineer who is also a security engineer, who is also a business analyst, and a project manager all clubbed into one. And they have to have 10 years of zero trust experience, right? Those are things that is not one person, but a whole team. So we have to understand that and recognize that you cannot have a kind of jack of all, master of none in these scenarios. You need experts. So you need to be able to split that into 3 or 4 job descriptions and hire those experts individually instead of expecting that into in one person. That is a failure. I mean, if you put out a job description like that, you'll start seeing resumes like that because hey, market kind of responds to demand, right? But if you're demanding the wrong thing, you'll get the wrong products.
Got it. Thank you, Sachin. We've ran over time. I still see a bunch of questions pouring in, but we'll try to address these offline through our follow-up posts on the matter. I thank you, Sachin, for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us on the matters of Zero Trust and how Gen AI is evolving the landscape of how companies invest in and people upskill themselves in this particular field. I thank the audience for joining us for this live session. And stay tuned for the follow-up posts. And we plan to do these episodes, short and sweet episodes, maybe month on a monthly cadence. So I request everyone to look out for these invites on our LinkedIn and other social channels. And feel free to join back us in as and when the frequency of what we are speaking about matches with your interest. With that, I thank you again, all of you, for being here, and hope to see you again soon. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining.